And I'm Phil Clossy. I started out here as the CEO of GFL in 1997. I always saw that girls should be given same opportunities as boys are given in community sport. I came from a country town which had netball seriously in it, but I was very keen to bring it into the GFL. There was change galore happening. Geelong Junior Footy was another one that was happening. We actually introduced a thing in GFL too, quite unique at the time. It's called computers. They didn't have them, so they had to go out and find computers. And the board embraced the change greatly, and so did the clubs. As all clubs do, they don't all accept it straight away, but it wasn't vigorously opposed. But once the Commission said we're going to do it, we had Carmel Fitzgerald and Colette Gallion, who worked with me to liaise with the clubs. They were fantastic, hard-working, passionate ladies. Getting the people up and representing each club wasn't that hard. That told me that it was going to be a success. It was they got highly motivated and went out and did their work like they were really inspired, and I was inspired by them. I can't remember them all, but there was an army of people behind these people. At Lara, Fiona Bennett was instrumental, and then at South Barwon, I think was it Chris Brown, Jan Nowicki at Geelong West, St Peters, and Carolyn Keast, or Carolyn McFarlane she was, I think, back then. At North Shore, and Kath West and Diane Hutchin at Newtown Chills, Simone Callan at Bell Park, Vicky Nichols and Cherie Vesey at Grovedale, and then Carmel Fitzgerald did St Joseph's, Irene Dunstan at St Mary's. Those people were just unbelievable what they had to do.
There's a lot of memories. I'm not sure if they're PG enough for this time slot. So when the GFL netball was floated as an idea, I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to be the only girl on the football committee. Basically turned around and said, hey, you're a chick, can you get some other girls together and start up a netball comp? I guess president, treasurer, secretary, it was me. I was the coordinator. So I organised uniforms, equipment, recruiting, fundraising, sponsorship, awards, trophies. I still am in the canteen a lot, and I now wonder how I had the energy. There was a lot involved in starting up.
We used to wear our pleated skirts and our t-shirts, and back then I had really big hair. It was simple. I became involved at North Shore in 1997 as a masseur, actually. Not long after I met my husband now, Glenn, and from there I jumped onto the senior football committee. And I remember Ken Iverme coming to a committee meeting and said that the next year the GFL were going to introduce netball. He sort of looked down the table and said, so Kaz, any chance you could help us out to start the senior netball and junior netball program at North Shore? I went home to Keisty and said, oh my goodness, this is what's happening, where do you start? I think it was great because it gave mothers of the club, sisters of the club, opportunity to get involved other than just the canteen. From the get-go, I was super lucky. We had a really good structure in place and people that were really invested and wanting to get their hands dirty.
Well, initially, each club went out and found a neighbouring school mainly. And ironically, I think Lara only in the last few years have moved away from the school.
We were at the old Quamby Western Heights campus. It's now Hamlin Views. We negotiated with the school. We didn't get a lot of spectators back in those days. I think it was my dad every week because he was the orange boy. We moved the courts to Clonard and then to Hamlin Park, and that was great for us because they'd come over and we were able to watch the football as well as the netball, so we got a lot more support then.
Wow, I'm not very good at this. You're absolutely fantastic, you'll be fine, you know that. Anyway, it's not going on Channel 7 or anything like that. Hey, I've been on there before, grand final day, because we slept out. We sleep out for the grand final. We first met when we were 15. I did play in 3 teams in the BFL up until 2000. And that's when my career stopped. I stayed at Newcomb. I met my husband there, and then I went down to Port Arlington. Well, we started coaching our daughters. Shirley's youngest, Chloe, and my eldest, Madison. We started coaching them at Newcomb, and they were very, very successful. they wouldn't allow them to play in their age group.
We had to give a 30-goal start.
So we knew that we needed to move them, and we were playing down at Life Be In It, and a gentleman by the name of David Morgan, who was the junior coordinator at South Bowen, came and approached us and said, look, I'd really like you to come into the GFL, and we thought, yeah, maybe this was the way we should go. The GFL was introduced in 2000, but we started at South Bowen together in 2002.
That's when the grand finals were at Cardinia Park.
In the car park. In the car park.
Yeah.
We won't even go there now, because that would be an insult to women if that happened now.
The football was played in the stadium, but the car park area was sectioned off, and a couple of netball courts were painted on, lines were painted on.
So of course the car park's a bit rocky. It wasn't ideal, but yeah, that was very interesting the first couple of seasons.
We built a temporary fencing. The wind blew it down a few times beforehand. I went down there and lifted it up. Did have a couple of injuries, I think, but the crowds were amazing.
The spirit of the day, of people just transferring across from football, you know, out to the netball and back in and vice versa.
That was the whole principle that we're trying to achieve, is keep it all together.
And because we had our teams in there, really special. There were banners, there was blue and gold everywhere. There was a lot to be happy for the fact that, you know, to be the first team to win the GFNL premiership, but very different look to how we're running things today. You know, we're far more professional and giving the players the right facilities.
We certainly worked out pretty quickly that, gee, you're going to need a bigger venue.
We just kept adapting to the change. You know, we had to start with an A and B side and an under 13s and 15s, and then you'd head off to a meeting and you'd come back and go, we now need to get a C grade side, and now we're needing 2 of each junior team, and then we're going to 17s. I think because the football had been quite successful even prior to netball starting, they ran a really professional program, and I suppose that's how I wanted us to be as well. You know, the levels of excitement lift, the training becomes more intense, you know, you're really hungry for it.
You breed success, and that's what happens, right? We started juniors and the seniors weren't as successful, and then the flow happened from the juniors through to the seniors. Well, they called us the nursery, and I do remember Cheryl and I coming to a meeting here one night. The coordinators from another club said, what are you doing that we're not doing? We explained to them it was the way we trained them. Shirley and I would meet on a Tuesday at Subway up here. For an hour we would plan our session, and we would walk in there and it would be 10 seconds for a drink, and that would train for an hour and a half solid. The standards that we set, we had values and standards that we did not compromise on, and I think that was because of our maturity.
I think also we brought a bit more professionalism into it. I would make it known that if we noticed any of the parents coaching from the other side, we would bring their daughter off and put them on the bench.
And we weren't just about South Bowen, don't get us wrong, we were about developing netball all the way through. Well, you talk about the Australian side, it's no good them winning all the time.
Our girls were very strong, so both Chris and I decided we're going to start to cap.
Yes,
didn't we?
We did.
When I coached at Flyers, I had a policy that I wanted to work with the better players out of all the clubs and give them the opportunities. We both hopefully set a really good standard, and other clubs got at least a bit of a template that they could follow.
Having that mixed gender membership at a club changes the culture of the club.
That we actually belong to a club. I mean, I know it took a while for the football side to accept the netball side, but they did eventually.
It gave our club a new vibe, some energy. It brought women together. You know, when you think back to the change, it allowed the club to really grow and develop, and it was really probably the making of us in a way.
It changed the atmosphere of Bell Park. The social events were off the charts.
Dancing with the Seagulls, we had football netball competitions followed by acoustic guitarists playing in the afternoon.
We just bonded. I think a few are even together to this day, so bonus.
Well, Glenn and I raised the 3 children there as babies, and it was probably the best time of our life, really.
And that people are still involved and their kids are now playing.
There was ex-players who only had daughters, and so there was nothing for them at their club. And then when we put netball into there, then they stayed around the club. and that was certainly one of our goals. I guess a more family orientated environment, and that worked brilliantly.
Oh, I think one of the beauty of clubs is that no matter where you go, you find great people, and great people who you know, probably put you to shame sometimes for the time and effort and energy that they put in.
The people in football and netball have never forgotten me, and I certainly have never forgotten them.
And they still are, they're all volunteers.
Yeah, I'm really proud of where it is, and same with the Geelong Junior Footy. You know, we restructured that too, and yeah, that's massive as well as the netball.
I feel what I've got out of it is the love of netball, but I actually loved seeing the kids developed and in their personal life as well. Like they could come up and talk to us about anything. It was just beautiful. And I get that now with mentoring junior umpires. I absolutely love it. I love see them grow. Like I'll use Emily Green as an example, who's a great role model, and she's come through the pathways, but now she is actually giving back. When I started doing the panel, it was us oldies. That's evolved a lot. It has.
Because it needed to evolve.
The programs are really good now. But the young ones, they've become stronger. It's now time for them to come up. But it's also time for players and spectators to allow them to do the job.
You know, seeing how well it's now going, and like tonight I'm even going down to Cardinia Park, not the car park but the actual courts. I'm watching, I think we've got about 4 or 5 junior teams playing in the netball grand finals tonight, so that wouldn't have happened if we didn't start up GFL netball.
It's just wonderful to see how it's evolved, but also how it's managed.
Not just within our clubs are people working hard, but AFL Barwon continue to work hard and in partnership with clubs, which can sometimes be hard.
And that model that we set up originally has probably enabled that. Nicole Peck was the original manager. And then Darren Harris joined us, Sarah Birch, Lisa Manzak, Caroline Morgan. They're the sort of people who worked here full-time or part-time to really get it working.
It was good times, it still is good times. I'm still happy to be involved with Bell Park and call it my club.
We've also both just recently been granted life membership at South Barwon, which is very, very dear to us both. So we're very, very grateful for that, for what our contribution, that it was acknowledged and that we're part of one of the great clubs in the GFL.